Hey guys, before we start, a quick shout out to Alpha Dog Nutrition for sponsoring this podcast. Alpha Dog products are now available at dusupply.com, and you can use code ALPHADOG15 at checkout for 15% off and a credit for free shipping to try it yourself. Now let's get you to your podcast.
Where's Fielder? He's gone to the dogs.
Well, we want to welcome you back to the Gone to the Dogs podcast one more time. Steve Fielder here with you. And I had a very enjoyable conversation at Autumn Oaks with Plott breeder Bill Scheninger from Ohio and with a show person who happens to show some of Bill's breeding in the Plott line, but she also had some Walker dogs and maybe some other breeds. I'm not sure, but Hannah Cable is with us. So we've got a three-way thing going here on the phone, and hopefully it all works out. But I'm just very, very happy to be able to get back in touch with you guys after Autumn Oaks. How you doing, Hannah?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you, Steve?
I'm doing great. I remembered my manners and let ladies go first. Bill Scheninger, longtime friend. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing wonderful this evening. Thanks for asking.
Oh, boy, that's good. You guys up there in the Buckeye Land are so polite and so nice. Even though when it's time to play the Michigan Wolverines, the things kind of change.
Yeah, I'm right here on the border, so it's a hot topic here.
I learned
actually.
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
Actually, where I live, the old state line goes right through our farm, which was the old border between Ohio and Michigan. And,
oh my goodness!
Some people might not realize it, but there was actually. Michigan and Ohio sent troops to go to war, and they got lost in the swamp, and they settled the dispute. Michigan got the Upper Peninsula, and Toledo got this 4-mile stretch that includes most of the city of Toledo and the port of Toledo.
So you traded, so you got Toledo, and Michigan got the Upper Peninsula?
Yeah.
You got the short end of that stick.
So it's County Road K that runs through our farm, and
cool?
It's called Old State Line, and all roads dead end into Old State Line. They all jog. There's nothing goes straight through.
I got you.
Wow.
Well, that's pretty interesting. Yeah. I'm a history buff. I love it. When I went to college at what's now called the University of Charleston, West Virginia, I know you probably didn't, that's not in the Big Ten or the SEC, but it's across the Kanawha River from the capital of West Virginia. And we had an old professor named Dr. Roth, and he was great at that American history. Man, I honestly look forward to his lectures because he would bring in so much the history and the Indian Wars and all of that stuff, But, well, that's good. That's good. But we're here to talk about coon dogs today and the various aspects of them. And, I don't know where to start. It's a chicken and the egg thing here. Lester Nance, who is the guy that's credited with hounding UKC until they named those spotted dogs treeing walkers, was actually held the very first coonhound bench show. And guess where? In the state of Ohio.
There you go.
At an event they called Leafy Oak that later became the Kenton National. And the Kenton National was always held on Labor Day weekend, long before Autumn Oaks was. So way back, there's been a desire by coon hunters to not only hunt their dogs or participate, as it were in that day, in the field trials more and water races maybe, but to also show the dogs. And we're going to talk about that. That's going to be one of the things that I want to talk with you guys about, and especially to Hannah about. But Bill, we're going to, age before beauty, as they say. So we're going to talk a little bit about these saddle up Plotts to start this thing off. I've had you on before. We recorded down at American Plott Association Days in Greenville, Tennessee, a couple years ago, I think. Was that right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I had you and Alex Recker on, I think. And so anyway, just so that my audience can get up to speed with who they're listening to today, give me a little backstory on Bill Shenniger.
Well, I've been affiliated with dogs all my life and coonhounds all my life. My dad was a coon hunter, and we raised stock dogs. We raised English Shepherds on the farm. I'm a farmer. I know several generations of farmers. I only know the last 4, I guess, which includes and my nephew's farming with me, so that's the last 5 that I'm aware of that were farmers. So we're in Northwest Ohio, like we referred to earlier. Pretty fertile farm ground here. The woods that we have to hunt is relatively small, and there's a lot of development, a lot of fast traffic. We're 30 miles west of Toledo, so that's what kind of some of the scenario that led me to the Plott breed. My dad was in his later years was hunting some walkers, some Pac-Man bred dogs, and they were ranging out pretty far, and it just wasn't my thing. Trying to figure out which section the dogs were in and stirring trouble with the neighbors. And I kind of fell away from hunting for a while, or coon hunting for a while. And it was about 13, 14 years ago, I was introduced to the Plott breed, and there was some characteristics about the breed of dog that really drew me in. And, one of the things was the outstanding handle these dogs have, the intelligence they have, the desire to please. And, as a sportsman, as a pleasure hunter, those things were extremely important to me. And on top of my environment that I have. So those were, the initial things that drew me in. And I was just blessed to be introduced to some really, really good dogs to start with. And it wasn't long, and I just realized that I needed to showcase these dogs because they were something special. And that's how I got into the hunting world, or the competition world. And I've met an unbelievable number of people. I never expected that this journey would take me to where I am, where I walk into a coon club and people know who I am. I show up at Autumn Oaks and people know who I am. And I'm a leadership role in the National Plott Hound Association. I never dreamed I'd be promoting a stud dog. I mean, just so many things that just weren't on my radar. But it's been exciting.
Well, the thing I noticed first, and I don't know exactly when we met, Bill, maybe you remember, but I know that, with my own experience, it goes back to when I was a kid. I can remember going to Plott Days in Chillicothe, Ohio, and taking a picture, or my dad taking a picture of Dale Brandenburger and Pioneer Drum in the barn there at Chillicothe, and my dad's 1955 Ford is in the picture, but Drum had just won Autumn Oaks in 1960. So I go way back, in the Plotts because of my dad. But I know that when I met you, I noticed right away that, number one, you're a friendly guy, and I enjoyed meeting you and talking to you. But I noticed you reaching out and going down to Georgia and going to South Carolina and going different places to the Plott sectionals or the Peach Classic or whatever. So you really kind of made an effort, and it's reminiscent of my dad's own experience. The first president of the Plott Association was H.L. Brown, and he lived there in Ohio. And my dad, when he got involved in the dogs in 1954, he wanted to go and meet the guy that was the president of the association and look at his dogs, And so I find I've got a lot of things that go back to Ohio roots. The first stud dog that we bred to and first litter of Plotts that we ever raised was a guy named Harry Pettit in Athens, Ohio, southeastern Ohio. My dad heard about his dog, a dog named Tim, and he took our female June, who was our very first registered Plott, up and bred. We got a good litter of pups. So, but Dad was like you. He wanted to kind of get out and meet the Plott people and learn as much as he could about the breed. And I think that's what you've done, haven't you, Bill?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I enjoy meeting people. I enjoy the history. I'm fascinated by it, especially the history of the Plott breed. I enjoy meeting these old timers that have these stories to tell, and I'm at the stage in my life where I appreciate that and know that if I don't listen, if I don't pay attention, if I don't ask the questions, much of this history will be lost. And I don't know, like you say, I'm a history student, and those things excite me, and I like to travel. I like to go places. I like to showcase my dogs. I'm proud of what I've got. And it's just fun. It's my hobby.
Yeah, well, it is, and I think that's pretty much why we all do this. I want to get to Hannah here. She's been basically listening to us talk, and but Hannah, you, in case anybody didn't, I'm not sure we got this covered in our interview at Autumn Oaks before we had the technical difficulties, but your last name is Cable, and you've got a pretty well-known brother.
That I do.
Yeah, you do, Kevin Cable, and the big money and little money and money in the bank. And I can't, I know one thing that Kevin's thinking about when he's naming dogs. That's money.
That he definitely is.
Well, what's the background on you? Let's say you Cables out there in the heartland. How does this coon dog thing all begin for you?
Well, my grandpa Carl he had actually had blue ticks before I was really born. Kevin and my other brother Nathan got to hunt with him a lot, and they were interested in blue ticks. And then my grandpa Charles did he did rabbit hunting and beagles, and him and my dad also did some water races with some greyhound and coonhound mixes. So I've been involved with dogs my entire life as far as that. But I really started hunting with Kevin, and we typically only hunted walkers. And I was kind of, a walker girl growing up. But my dad had these greyhound and Plott hound mixed dogs, and they were my favorite dogs on the place. And little did I know that Plott dogs would have such a big role in my life later on.
Yeah.
But Kevin and Angie Cable were the ones that got me my first Plott dog, Gambler, when I was about 12 years old. And I fell in love with how he acted and how smart he was and just his personality. And I just kind of never really went back. I've had a couple walkers here and there since him, but I like my walkers, but my heart's with Plott dogs.
I got you. Well, welcome to the family. Yeah, I've gone astray a couple of times in my life. I've gotten I've had some nice walker dogs, and
Yeah.
I enjoyed them very much. But Plott, it just is the dog that just resonates with me. I mean, I think it's in my DNA. But
Yeah, I definitely understand that.
yeah. Now you mentioned your grandpa Carl.
Hmm.
His last name?
His last name was Hall, Carl Hall.
Yeah. I believe I knew
Um,
him, and he had
I, be-
blue
I,
ticks, right?
I believe so. His wife was Betty Hall.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Mhm.
remember those folks. I sure do. And now James Tyree is related to you, right?
Yep, he's my uncle. He's actually the one that taught me how to competition hunt.
Yeah. Had some good hunts with James back in my PKC days, I believe, hunting there in Indiana, I guess. James
Yep.
lives in Indiana, right?
Yeah, he does.
All right. Well, there's so much that I want to talk about today, and I wanted to set the tone here by introducing the listeners to the both of you. I want to tell you a little bit about my last couple of days that I've had here. We have a Plott dog. My partner Mark Miller down in North Carolina, Taylorsville, North Carolina. Mark and I, and strictly due to Bill, in our getting together and over a dog that I had, a female. And the long story short, a lot of people, sometimes we talk about how the stars line up, when something works out that's really good. And, I had a dog called Hoss that I really enjoyed. And another Buckeye comes into the story. Kevin Lundholm, who was secretary of the Plott Association, heard that I had lost a good young female Plott to the road. And he had a litter there that he had selected down to 2 males, and he had decided which male he wanted to keep, and he contacted me and said, if you'd like to have this other male, I'd like for you to have him. And at that point, I was working for AKC in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I needed this pup. It was just at a time in my life that I needed that kind of diversion, I guess, or to direct my attention away from some issues that I was having. And so I got Hoss, and he became my buddy, and we probably logged close to 200,000 miles together in my old truck, going to events here and there and so forth. And I raised a litter of puppies due to the goodness of Amanda Alexander over in Pennsylvania. And I kept a female named Dancer. And my friend Tony Beals, our mutual friend Bill, that story, I had Dancer in a training pen in Mississippi. She was doing really well. Tony was there for the Winter Classic and said, I'd like to take Dancer back to Michigan and hunt her on some coon for you if you'd like her to be hunted that way. And I said, I sure would. That would be great. Unfortunately, Tony got sick, and as we know, we lost Tony, a great guy. But before Tony died, he said, Steve, these dogs have got to go. I can't care for them anymore. And then that's where you and I kind of got together, Bill, and we talked about Dancer. And maybe you can pick this up a little bit, but, you were able to take her at that time, right?
Yeah, it was actually at Plott Days up to Bellevue, Michigan. Tony was the president of the association at the time, but his health was in decline, and he needed to cut back a little bit. And Lazarus is actually won Plott Days that year, won the Isaiah Kidd Award. Tony was camped directly across the driveway from me, and we've been friends. And he just asked me if I wanted to take Dan his home. And I told him, sure, I'd be glad to. And anyway, I brought her home, and there was some communication back and forth between you and Tony and I. And you said that if I hunted her and felt she was worthy of breeding, that I could breed her to Lazarus. And that's how that happened.
Well, yeah, but you're being very gracious there. I think I mostly said, Bill, I think, I had told Tony before. I said, I don't want her. Tony and I were partners on Dancer. I told him, I said, I really don't want her bred to any Plott dogs until she really proves herself. But Tony had asked me about breeding to a cur dog that he had, a squirrel dog and coon dog, I guess. A Grand Night champion dog he called Briar, I'm pretty sure. And Dancer was bred a couple times with good results. In fact, Bill, I still get contacted from time to time, people asking me if is Dancer still having puppies, But anyway, the opportunity for you to take Dancer was, man, it was really exciting to me, and especially knowing that you had Lazarus and my good buddy down here, Gordy Schrader, had told me about Lazarus, and he'd hunted with him and Joe, and he said that's a good dog, Steve, and so anyway, we decided, or you had the ultimate approval on that we would breed her to Lazarus, and we did. And there comes this litter that wasn't, well, to back up, Lazarus was from an orphan litter, wasn't he?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah.
That's quite a story in its own. So.
Yeah, and then so lo and behold, we found out, and it's probably through Tony's declining health and inability to do things the way he'd like to do, we found out that Dancer was sick. And I believe you called me. Did you call me before or after she had passed?
I called you before. I called you. Actually, I took her to the vet, and they asked me to leave her there. And they called me and gave me the report. And I called you and Tony both before I told them to wait. I had to make a couple of phone calls, and then I went up to the clinic for when we put her down. Yeah.
My wife and I were traveling at that time, and we were in West Virginia, and I remember that very well. These dogs, and we're going to talk about this more, I hope, as we go along, they get so close to us sometimes. And, Dancer was that dog in that litter. There was a beautiful litter of puppies there. And she was the one that my wife told me, I don't care which one you keep, don't keep her. She's got too much energy. She said, yeah, she was the one who was always climbing out of the X pen and just doing climbing up in the tree here in the yard and just but I have many fond memories of Dancer, and then to be able, then you, Bill, said, and I don't want to misquote you, but in so many words you say, I have a puppy here for you out of this litter. And I knew that I really didn't have the ability at the time to do that pup justice. And that's where Mark Miller came in, and we partnered in that. That story had a tremendous ending, or not, hopefully not an ending yet, but the bear pen fever dog that Mark and I have together, that's my very first quad grand champion dog. I'd never actually even aspired to have a quadruple grand champion, but Mark's a go-getter, and he sets goals. And so anyway, Fever came via Ohio. There we go again. And And so we've just had a great time with him. And he's not even 3 years old yet, but he's got a birthday coming up on the 11th of October, one day before mine. So, but then, so I can get on with this story, and then we can let you guys talk. Fever was bred to 3 females, and the second one was owned by John Sapier in Spartanburg, South Carolina. And he had to post a picture of this runt of the litter, this little light brindle dog, male dog, that my wife happened to see on Facebook. And that's the bottom line is she said, Steve, I would love to have this dog if we can bring him in the house and let him live like our dachshund Louie lives, which is like a king, by the way.
Yeah.
And
Most house dogs are.
yeah, and she said, I said, well, I'm not, I don't want to waste a good hunting dog, bred the way he is. And she said, oh, no, I don't, I want us to hunt him, but I also want him to stay inside. I want him to be our family dog along with Louie. So we agreed to do that, and John Sapier and I, he said, well, he's available here, Steve, and I'll keep him here and let him run on, I forget what creek that is there before. And I got, no. When Miss Ella wants a dog, it's now, express, immediately.
Well, you don't want to give her an opportunity to change her mind.
Well, that's it, but she's persistent too. So anyway, you and I, the 3 of us are recording here on a Thursday, which is kind of late in the week for recordings. But on, what did we do? Tuesday morning, we got up bright and early here got up before breakfast, as we say back here back in West Virginia, and we drove to Spartanburg, South Carolina, which is almost 600 miles. And we overnighted and got up the next morning early and met John Sapier at the hotel, and he drove us out to we followed him out to his house and picked up this pup and headed back to Florida and got home last night, actually, this is Thursday. Yeah, got home last night about 8 o'clock. And we named this puppy Bearpin Fever's Ghost in honor of a dog that I had one time. It was called Bearpin Bronco's Ghost. And I posted the story Ghost on Facebook. But anyway, so we've been into all of that, and then today had an interesting day. The pup, which you might find this funny, Hannah, his call name is Boo. His name is Ghost. His call name is Boo, B-O-O, with an exclamation point.
I like that.
Do you? Well, it's kind of strange. People ask me, why do you name your dogs such strange names? And I said, well, dogs are like their masters. But anyway, we've had a little issues with him. He's having trouble keeping his food down. But we've got him on the path to go, and he's just delightful. He's such a good-looking little guy. Let me ask you guys real quick, have you had any experience with runts of the litter or the smallest pups? Are there any stories about that? Because that's what he is. He's the runt of his litter.
I don't think that I have any runts in particular at this time, but, they always, those little guys have just a way of stealing your heart.
Exactly.
I had one here just recently, and they all look the same size, and this one kind of fell behind a little bit, and I was really worried about him. And he was a trooper, and he pulled through and did really good. And I sent a couple of pictures to a potential customer, happened to be somebody you might know, Corey Groover, and he picked that run.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I didn't know that about Corey's pup. He's got a nice pup there.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Hannah? You have any experience with that, or maybe your brother or your uncles or whatever?
Honestly, for me personally, I have not. I tend to end up picking the biggest male pup out of the litter.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
Yeah. Well,
but
there's
I
certainly something to be said about those big, proud-looking males. Yeah.
but I really don't remember anything about any small
Yeah.
runs or anything.
Well, we had one time. We called him Bearpin Top Hand. I used to name my dogs Western names. I was on that kick. I had Bronco, I had Roper, I had Wrangler. I had the ghost dog that, his name, this pup, Top Hand, we called him Pee Wee because we never thought he would ever grow up. He was very small as a pup and up through, but man, he never got to be a real big dog, maybe 50 pounds. But he had a heart as big as Texas and was one of my all-time favorite dogs. So anyway, we've got Ghost here, or Boo, if you will. So that's what I've been into for the last couple of days, or 2 or 3 days. And, you think at my age about getting a new puppy, and you start thinking about things you need to do things and have things in your life that keep you active, physically and mentally. So that's kind of Boo's job, is to keep the old man out, if you will. If you've heard the song by Toby Keith, don't let the old man in, So anyway, that's all I got, but I want to get back to you guys and continue to talk about some of the things we talked about and before we get into the business of your reproductive work, Bill, Hannah, you got involved at an early age with showing the dogs. How did that start for you?
Well, my sister-in-law, Angie Cable, she took me we went with my brother and my mom to our first Autumn Oaks, probably when I was, I believe, 9. And we went to Oaks, and she let me show one of her male dog, Hank, I believe at the time, in the kitty show. And I kind of grew more interested, and then she helped me kind of learn the basics with Kevin's Walker dogs, and I showed at the Hannah's Creek show, and I won it with big money and another female, and I kind of got interested, and then they got me Gambler, and then I just kind of started learning more from there and entered into the conformation world a little bit with Gambler, and that's really when I truly started learning and really understanding how important the communication with you and your dog is, and it just kind of kept going from there.
Well, I had the privilege of judging you at the top 10 show at the Winter Classic this year in Batesville, and you're an accomplished handler for sure, and you've been paying attention, and you recently won an award for your handling. Tell us about that a little bit.
If you don't mind me asking, do you remember which one that was? I've been quite a few recently.
Of course. Well, I was thinking about the one, didn't you, something related to the confirmation show at Autumn Oaks, or about the youth handler, or I
remember what you're talking about.
Okay,
now.
Tell us about that, and then tell us about the others, too. It's not bragging if you can do it, Hannah, right?
I recently won the overall best junior handler at Autumn Oaks this year. That's been a goal that I've been striving for the last probably 5 years. Really hard.
Wow.
I was able to achieve it with Joe this year, but a couple of weekends ago, me and Joe were able to win a couple best junior handlers, and we were also able to win some best in shows as well.
Yeah. I know that you and Joe have had a pretty strong run there, and back to what we were talking with Bill there about, Joe is Lazarus's brother, correct?
Yes, he's a littermate brother.
Littermate, yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Of course, we talked about this before, but Lazarus winning the Isaiah Kid Award at Plott Days. That's a very significant award within the Plott breed because it's awarded to the dog that has the high score for 3 nights in a row. Actually, you don't have to be the high scoring dog each night, but you have to win your cast, or you should, to be the Isaiah Kid Award winner. And to win 3 casts, did Lazarus win 2 or 3 casts when he won the Isaiah Kid?
He won 3 casts and
awesome.
finished Plott Days with no circle and no minus points.
That's awesome. The best we ever did was with the dog called Wrangler, and he won the opposite sex, and we didn't get 3 cast wins. We got 2 out of 3. So that's quite an accomplishment. Well, Hannah, I think we discussed this at Autumn Oaks, and unfortunately that interview got pretty much destroyed. But tell me about how this Joe and Hannah and Bill relationship all came together.
Well, Alex Recker actually introduced me to Bill at the Liberty Center youth event where I actually handled Lazarus in the bench show, and I hunted him that night in the youth hunt. And that's kind of how me and Bill become friends. And then I believe the next year, we were down at Plott Days in Flora, Illinois, and I'd seen Joe kind of over in the barn tied up, and I asked if they'd care if I would mess with him and showed him. And the next thing I know, Bill and Alex are sitting me down and asking me if I want to take him home with me. And
get him off the feed, Bill, right?
Little did I know that I needed Joe more than Joe needed me. And we've just kind of been learning together and taking it one day at a time.
Yeah. Well, those were 2 very, very nice-looking Plott dogs. The first time I saw them, I think I saw them in person the first time at Autumn Oaks, Bill. I think you had Lazarus and Joe and Cowboy there at the same time, didn't you?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we did take a picture with Lazarus. Of course, I like to try to rub elbows with celebrity, So I wanted to get my picture taken with Bill and Lazarus. And that's one of my favorite pictures. Lazarus really, he showed up for that one. He really looks great in that photo, I think. So you brought the Plott dog home and you guys went to work and sounds like it's really worked out for you.
See, when we brought him home, my dad had no clue that Joe was coming home with me because my mom just couldn't tell me no. And it was about 4:00 in the morning when Dad realized that Joe was in the house in a crate. And he said, "I don't believe I recognize the dog that's in that crate." And now Joe and my dad are best friends.
Plott dogs have that way about them.
That they do.
They do. Well, Bill, you can join in this conversation too here about that. But this Plott dog personality, it's really there. And you mentioned it there earlier when you were talking about needing a dog that handled better and so forth. And of course, your brother, Hannah, likes one that hunts in the next zip code most of the time. And So that Plott personality, it's always been there with these dogs from my earliest recollection, all the way back in 1954, if you can imagine that. I was 8 years old when my dad brought June home, was our first Plott. She was black as coal. She had a frosty muzzle, the gray. Plotts tend to do that. And I was just taken from the first time I saw her. I said, that's the most beautiful dog I've ever seen. And but they do have a different personality than other hounds, don't you think, Hannah?
I definitely do. I honestly think part of what makes them so beautiful is their heart. I feel like they have the biggest heart out of any of the coonhounds that are out there.
It takes an individual, especially a young person, as you are, to see that and to recognize that in the dogs. But that's really true. As I look back over the better ones that we had, my dad was primarily a bear hunter. And to see that heart demonstrated on a fairly regular basis. And you can see it in other ways. In just like this fever pup that we have, he has got a heart, as I said, as big as Texas. You put him in a water race, he hates those platforms. If we could get him into a dock jumping school where he'd learn to jump off of a porch, he would be phenomenal. But he hates them. He doesn't like them. He'll go out there and dance around on the dock a little bit and say, oh, there they go. I better go too. And then when he kicks it in, but when he's swimming, if another dog gets, he looks back and he sees a dog coming, that's when he turns it on.
They definitely strive for competition.
Yeah. Bill, what's your experience with that?
I don't want you to slight Hannah on the fact that not only is she a good show handler, she's a pretty good hunt handler too. She's hunted some of my dogs and she's made us proud. She's done a good job. And one of the other things that I don't want to miss mentioning is Hannah's been a great ambassador for the breed, but she has been a great supporter and helper for me. My involvement with the Plott Association, the last couple of years at Plott Days, she's been handling dogs and helping run events, and she hunted the youth hunt this year and won her cast, and the next day, that was on Wednesday, Thursday, she worked all day running events, and I'm thinking, man, she's working hard, she's getting sunburned. And at Thursday, about, I don't know, late afternoon, I could see she was pretty well wrung out, and she says, would it be okay if I don't hunt tonight? I says, Hannah, that's perfectly fine. I could tell she just, the girl's service above self. Her and her mother both worked hard to help me with my responsibilities and duties with the association. They worked hard to help make sure my dogs got in the daytime events. And they've helped me get the dogs in the hunts. Yeah. So, Hannah's more than just a show handler.
Let's go ahead and say it like it is and be at the risk of being chauvinist, Bill. She's not just a pretty face.
Absolutely not. She's the real deal. And the one of the other neat things about her is I've been to these youth events with her and support her and brought dogs for her, and she's helping these young kids that need a little advice, need a few pointers. She's helping them with their dogs and helping teach the kids. She is a great mentor and, like I say, a great representative of the hound world. And I'm proud to say of my line of dogs and Plott dogs in general.
Oh,
I appreciate that, Bill.
Well, Hannah, that's well deserved, and I mentioned before to you, so this won't be new. But that when I was down at the Top 10 show in Batesville and getting ready to leave there, at the convention center at the door, and you said, "Thank you, Mr. Fielder, for coming and for judging our dogs." That meant a lot to me. And it spoke volumes of the kind of person you are, Hannah. And so I really appreciate that, too. And to hear Bill talking about these other things about you, it doesn't surprise me a bit. Because,
Thank you.
Yeah, you're very, very welcome. And I'm going to tell my listeners here, and you're never supposed to tell a woman's age, but you're 17. Is that right?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. That's just awesome. And to think that, you're not only... we're all competitive. We don't enter any kind of a contest without the hope that we'll win it. I don't think. I mean, why would you? But
Right.
And so you enjoy the competition, but you're willing to share what you know and what you've learned. And I guess beyond that, you've been willing to listen and to learn and to watch and to, so. Our sport is very, very, I don't want to say lucky. I want to say just very fortunate to have you in it, and to know that you'll be able to do this for many, many years is really, really exciting to me. There's so many ways I want to go with this conversation today, and I want to touch on some more of your activities, Hannah, but Bill, along the way, you've gotten involved in canine reproduction. Now, I don't know if I'm using that general title right, or if you have a better term for it, but tell us a little bit about what you're doing there.
Well, I guess that would be a pretty good term. I enjoy learning, I enjoy researching, and there was some things that I wasn't getting from the veterinary community and the reproductive community that to my satisfaction. I started out with Lazarus's father, the Lincoln Valentine dog. When I bought him, I thought I had something special. I knew I had something special, and I wanted to get him frozen. And I took him to a clinic to get semen frozen. And the first thing I heard was he's pretty old. And 7, that's not that old. And
right.
Then they told me that, that's old to freeze a dog, and you can freeze it, but it doesn't wake up good. I got the big song and dance about that. I took him to a couple other clinics and got the same song and dance. And I decided I was going to start learning. And so I've learned, and I have a little side business here where I'm freezing canine semen. And kind of one of my specialties is some of these older dogs that other clinics don't want to do it. I've learned a few tricks, a few things that customers can do to help themselves, help their dog. And I just tell people no more than it costs. If I think it's reasonable quality semen, I think we should freeze it. But
why not? Really?
Yeah, exactly. It's a little cost, but the bigger message is get it done when they're young. I mean, that's what I'm trying to teach people is you have a young, promising stud dog, get him in, get his evaluation done on his semen quality, and make sure he's not sterile, so you're not running a dog up and down the road promoting and campaigning that's never going to have pups. But man, as soon as he reaches a year old or a little more, let's freeze him. And you and I talked earlier about the advantages of freezing. There's the semen lasts infinitely as long as it's stored properly. There's no shelf life on it as long as it's kept in liquid nitrogen. It's an insurance, because when we turn these dogs loose, I mean, we are not only invested in these dogs financially, but emotionally we're invested in them. And it's a little bit of peace of mind to know that you have something in the bank if things go awry. And I think most of us that have been in this game for very long have lost one to the road. So It's a little peace of mind there. There's some exciting new things on the horizon. I mean, they've been flushing cattle for a long time, flushing eggs and freezing them, and they're starting to do that in dogs now. So, I mean, that could turn on some excitement for campaign females, and reaching back to some of these genetics in females that we haven't thought about in the past. And I guess one of the other things that we talked about a little bit previously was that the technology, our sport, the rules, and the places or conditions that we hunt in are going to continue to change, continue to evolve. And we never know when we're going to need some trait from the past.
There you go.
We just don't know when that's going to become super valuable. And there's semen in the tank from dogs 20 years gone by that some of it be used in the near future, some of it will just be in the bank. So,
well, there's no doubt that the benefits are many, and there are many of us that are sitting here today wishing that we had collected a dog or dogs of our past, and and thinking about it, and and I certainly do. I can think of 3 or 4 dogs that I would love to have back, or the ability to breed to through frozen semen. And it just wasn't done all that often when I had those dogs. And like you say, there were the naysayers, the dog's probably too old to collect and so forth.
Yeah, there's just it's an opportunity for people, and if you've got something you're proud of, I mean, even if it's just for nostalgia reasons, it's not that big a deal to get it done. There's enough clinics around the country that are doing this. It's just an opportunity to preserve something that's important to you. I mean, we invest a lot of time, a lot of our, not only time and money, but emotion and blood, sweat, and tears. It's just the investment we have in these dogs is only a houndsman understands it.
Well, that's for sure. And, you learn, you realize that when you're in a situation like me, keeping a hunting breed as a family dog, and people question, why is this dog intact? Why didn't you spay or neuter this dog? And then you have to tell them that this dog, yes, it's a member of the family, and yes, I may have paid a lot of money for it, but it's it's the heritage factor, the ability to pass this on. And that was my Apple Watch right there talking to me. But and that's the thing. And the people that are not involved in working dogs don't understand that, and probably never will. And I get a little up on my stump every once in a while. This adopt, don't shop movement that swept through the companion dog world, that purebred dogs somehow are, you shouldn't have that. I look at that as kind of like gun control, Yeah. And if you want to rescue a dog, God bless you, and I'm sure there's a lot of great dogs in those shelters that need you. But if you're a hunter and want to see that dog do things that you never believed would be possible because of the efforts of the people that came before us and the breeding, I look at Kevin's dogs there, Hannah and, Big D, and those dogs back there, made an indelible impression on that bloodline.
Yeah, they really have.
Yeah, and likewise with our Plott breed. I mentioned earlier Dale Brandenburger and old Drum. Drum produced a bazillion puppies all over the country, and there were naysayers. Drum was a big dog, but his mother and daddy both were fairly good sized dogs. Ozark Chief and Full Cry Sioux, but Drum, he was kind of like the Shohei Ohtani, of the baseball world. When's the last time you saw someone from Japan that's as tall as Ohtani is? They are a short breed of, what's the word I want to use? Anyway, people were saying, "Oh, he can't be Plott. He's got to be Bloodhound. He's got to be this. He's got to be that." So we always have the naysayers, but those people those pioneers, and he called his kennel the Pioneer Plott Kennel, like Dale Brandenburger, who took dogs out of the mountains in the 40s, put them in the pages of Full Cry and American Cooner magazine every month to help build this breed to what it is today. And I know we're the smallest breed out there in number. Well, now that we have the leopard hounds, I guess that we don't have that distinction. Thank you, Bill. It's been a long day, boy. My old brain cells are asleep. But anyway, you got to look at that heritage factor always, and what's been before us, and now it's our job, to step into the harness and look to the future. That's why we've got old Boo down here. We're hoping, we're ever hopeful to make things better for this great breed. Well, how do people get in touch with you, Bill, as far as, let's say they get it, they hear the message, they've got that dog that's 2-3 years old or older, and they want to collect the dog for future use. How can they get in touch with you?
Well, they can give me a call or text me. And is it okay to get my phone number out here, Steve?
If it's okay with you, it's fine.
Okay.
With me.
Well, they can call or text 419-467-7689. I've got a kennel page on Facebook, Saddle Up Plotts, and you can message me through Facebook. And I'm usually at most of the major events. So Winter Classic, Grand American, Autumn Oaks. Look me up there. I'll be either probably working the Plott booth or having my own booth set up promoting my line of dogs.
There you go. And isn't that fun? I remember when I put my first banner had my first banner made. And my buddy Mark Miller, he's trying to bring back that tradition, of the stud dog barns with the banners and all that. And he had a nice display down at Grand American this last year, and you were right there. Well, let's see, was that last year or the year before?
No, this past year.
This past year, and you and Mark were kind of set up there together in the barns, and it's not what it used to be as far as the stud barns, but it's good to see that there are a few coming back with that sort of thing.
It was an interesting experience. I'd never really done that before, and it was just, I learned a lot about promotion and communication. There's a lot of people walk through there, and if I would have just sit back in the chair with my legs crossed and arms folded, they'd have just walked on by. But when I stood up there at the table and talked to them and introduced myself and asked them about their dogs, they wanted to talk. They wanted to tell their story, and they wanted to hear mine.
Yeah. Yeah. When we started, we called it the Breeders' Showcase. I think we did. That's what we used. And PKC later on picked that up and had a hunt for Super Stakes pups down at Aurora, Kentucky. called Breeder Showcase, but we did that at Autumn Oaks. Before we had the big show building that they have now, we had to be creative, so we got some I call them circus tents, and set up out there outside the Coleman Center, and we had booths in there, and and the first year that we did it, I can't remember now. I had one or two of my buddies stayed with the dogs, and I had some brochures printed up and the history of our dogs and some photo albums and things like that, just to share, and had a lot of people come by and were interested in Plotts and knowing more about them, That's a unique thing, and I don't know if you get this, Hannah, or not, but, people ask, what kind of dog is that? I get that all the time, and one of the easiest ways for me to tell them what it is, I said, oh, that's the state dog of North Carolina. That's the Plott Hound. That's the utility dog of the Southern Appalachians. That's the old yeller with stripes,
I tend to tell them that it's the North Carolina state dog. Is that what I tend to tell people?
Yeah, and they can kind of wrap their mind around that. If you start telling them the history, back to 1750, there you might get an eye roll or two, but
I affectionately tell people that when you see those pictures of the mountain folks sitting on the front porch with the hound laying next to them, that was probably a Plott.
Probably was, yeah. And in my family, we got, I always joke and say, we probably a lot of moonshiners and horse thieves and such. But I can verify that some of my family were really some characters. My mother was a Hatfield, and, from eastern Kentucky, and they, the feuding Hatfields and McCoys and all that. So that's where my roots go back to. Yeah. But old Devil Lance Hatfield himself, he was a hunter and a bear hunter, and he had hounds. And from the oldest pictures that I can find, they sure look like Plotts to me. I don't know if they are, but there's the same type dog, that a Plott is.
Right. Well, yeah, that's exactly the point, is they were the type of dog.
Mm-hmm. Well, Isaiah Kidd, who was the oldest Plott breeder when I was a young person, he died while I was away at college in the 60s. But he had often talked about the dogs that they had when he was young that were kind of a brindle cur type dog there in West Virginia. And then he later went to the mountains and got some dogs from the Plott family. And, and that's kind of where his start in the registered Plott dogs began. But, they're an interesting breed, and you can do about anything with them. Are you doing anything besides showing? You're also night hunting some, right, Hannah?
I am. So my gambler dog is he's an AKC novice trick dog. And he also has his B cat, which is a fast cat title.
Okay, now explain that a little bit to me, because those titles have come around after I left the AKC. What is this cat dog thing?
So pretty much it's like a 100-yard dash, and they have a fence up, and they put like a little white trash bag on this pulley thing, and you pretty much turn your dog loose after it, and they see how fast, fast your dog can run, and then they kind of add it up, and it gives you points, and then eventually when you get to 100 points, you get a champion thing, pretty much, which is a B cat. And then 500 points is like a grand, and then it just kind of keeps going up on levels and
that's awesome.
And, but it's honestly it's something different to do. They're typically held in conjunction with an AKC all breed show.
Okay, along with agility and that sort of thing. Yeah, that's cool. Have you been to the American Plott Association Breed Days there in Tennessee, Hannah?
I went last year with Bill.
Okay, cool. Well, they have their dash races, and that's fun to watch. I don't know if you got a chance to watch them or not, but we've had some pretty good success with Fever in those dash races, and it's just fun stuff to do with dogs. Yeah.
Right.
And you mentioned another title there that I didn't recognize. What? Tell us about that.
So it's the AKC Novice Trick Dog title. There's multiple levels to that too, and I actually did this with Gambler during COVID. I did it over the phone. I taught it. It was like 10. I had to teach him 10 tricks, and then I videoed me doing the 10 tricks with him, and then I sent it in to the evaluator, and then they sent me a certificate.
Man, that's great. That's great. I mentioned Hoss that I had. That's the grandfather of Fever and the great grandfather of Boo. He had kind of had a repertoire of tricks, and I used to take him to the elementary school where Ella and her daughter taught, and the kids loved seeing him go through his routine, And I believe that he was a Plott dog, purebred. I believe you could have taught that dog anything.
Yeah.
His treat was an Old Roy peanut butter dog biscuit. When Kevin Lundholm when I got the dog at 3 months old, his wife sent a bag of the Ziploc bag of those, and he enjoyed them his whole life long. Someone once told me that Fielder Hoss would drive your truck for an Old Roy biscuit. But do you ever do any of that sort of thing with your dogs, Bill?
No, I haven't. But I do appreciate some obedience training. I see a lot of value in that, and especially the ability to recall your dog, to call him in, and that. But I haven't competed with them. Quite frankly, my dogs are very, very driven, and it would take. It would take quite a bit of effort to change their focus from what I've worked with them on. And I guess while we're talking about, other things doing with these dogs, I don't want to neglect to say that Lazarus has thrown some really nice big game dogs. I've got dogs in Idaho and Mexico hunting lions, and some in Tennessee and the Carolinas hunting bear, and they're doing outstanding. I'm getting great reports, and I shied away from that initially. I wanted Lazarus pups to be coon dogs, but as we all do, we make friends in all walks of life, and I shared some of my genetics with people, and they've been impressed. They've been happy, and they've bred those dogs and shared them with their friends, and he's making an influence and a splash in the big game world also.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. And Hannah, you mentioned it before, the heart of these dogs. This Fever dog, drive, heart, whatever you want to call it, he never gets tired, And we had an unfortunate experience at the World Zones where he basically hunted this area out and decided to come in, that he'd done his job, and there was nothing more to do. But he was a dog that's never quit on us. He's ready. He doesn't get tired. I know as age comes along, he will. But he just seemed. So I think, I'm hopeful that his puppies will do well on big game, and I have every confidence that they will, because, here's the thing. Excuse me. I get guys come to me and say, Steve, what we need to do to breed into some of these Plotts today is some of that old bear dog stock, to give them more bottom, to give them more nose, give them more determination, and all that sort of thing. And maybe we do. I don't know. But, that works both ways, and I think some of the bear hunters out there in certain situations could use more of the locating tree dog ability that we have in these coon dogs. And, why should we just breed them one way? All my life, and you can look at my record and say, well, that's not that impressive. But I hunted dogs that would go both ways. You could hunt them on coon and you could hunt them on bear. And they, seem to adjust. It's kind of like my dad said, the cur dogs that they had as a boys back in Tennessee, if you took the shotgun and headed or the .22 rifle and headed to the woods, they'd tree squirrels. If you went down around the fields and the river bottom and all, they'd run rabbits. You take them out at night, you take the lantern and the flashlight and leave from the house, they're going to go find you a possum and a coon if there was one in the county, So dogs are pretty adaptable and they're versatile, and especially the Plott breed. I honestly
feel that the Plott dogs would do anything that, if they knew that it made you happy, they'd do anything for you. Just from my experience of Joe went from being just a good old coon dog and didn't really, he had no clue really what showing was. And as soon as he realized that showing made me happy, well, then he learned how to show, and he started wanting to do what made me happy. And I just honestly feel that Plott dogs will do anything to please. And I feel like that's why they are able to adjust to so many different things and able to run so many different types of game, is because they have the heart to do it.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things, again, this is, I guess you would say it's my podcast, so I guess I can say what I want, but the fever dog, he's versatile, He's a grand champion in the bench and in the night hunt and the field trials and the water races, So, I mean, and we haven't tried him in obedience. He needs a little work on that. He handles fine, you get him back. Thanks to electronics, that tone works very well with dogs. I talked to my friend Keston Jesse, and Keston hunts Walker dogs, and he's got a dog. It's a Power Pack bred dog called Clyde. And he said, Steve, you wouldn't believe this. The dog, I think, was a mile and a tenth or some crazy distance. And he wanted to get him back. Coon weren't moving all. He said, I toned him. And in 3 minutes and change, he was on the tailgate. So I'm all for the electronics, especially at my age. But, Bill, do you agree with Hannah's assessment of the Plott dogs?
Well, I describe it as utility. Where, I mean, like I say, we can go hunting anything today, and if you can, and as a trainer, I think consistency is important. Sending these signals to the dogs, and I see Hannah, how she handles her dogs on the bench, being consistent with her signals and her commands. And like, for one example, when I travel, I let my dogs ride in the front of the truck. When we go to the woods, they ride in the box. And I think, but these dogs have a phenomenal utility. You just need to learn how to communicate with them what you're expecting. I mean, I fully believe that if I told Lazarus we're loading cattle in a semi today, if I could communicate that with him, he would help me do that.
Yeah.
If I told him we're coyote hunting tomorrow, he would do that with me. If I told him we're coon hunting tonight and it's a competition, he is all in.
Yeah. Well,
But
unless you've had a dog like that, you don't really understand that, and there's probably people listening to us talk like right now and saying, "Yeah, right, yeah, Old Yeller and Stripes, I get it," but but they really are, and I've used that term utility a lot over the years, Bill. As I said, the utility dog of the Appalachian Mountains, and yeah.
Well, I think it describes them well.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. What's the next big endeavor for you, Hannah, as far as your dogs and upcoming shows or any goals that you set for yourself?
Well, as far as shows, I actually have a big AKC all breed show this weekend that I'm taking Joe to on
Awesome.
Saturday and Sunday.
Oh, that makes me happy.
And,
If you know how hard the sweat and blood that went into getting all these coonhound breeds into those AKC confirmation shows, oh, that's great, man! You making me smile. Go ahead.
But as far as next goals, my next goal is making Joe's first male baby, JJ. I'm hoping to make him my dual dog, and so far he seems to be panning out. He's starting to track and do a little bit of treeing for me in the woods and he's doing pretty good on the bench, and I think he's gonna make something for me.
Well, I'm sure that he will, and that brings up the subject of these young dogs, and I've got one here 9 weeks old in the house. And, I absolutely want the very best for that dog. It's like Mark Miller and I talked when we first formed a partnership. And I said, Mark, all I want is for this dog to have the chance to do what the good Lord gave him, or help him to accomplish what he has within his DNA. And if we give them a chance and do our best for them, it's really all we can do. But I believe they'll do the rest. I really do.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It was really amazing the other night to see JJ running the track, and he's never ran one before, and it was completely dark, and he was all on his own, and he opened, and you could just really tell that he was running the track, and he was using all of his natural ability that he had to figure it out. And it was really amazing to see him kind of go through that process.
That is, you spoke of heart earlier. You have the heart of a houndsperson, Hannah, because that's what it's all about. And we try to talk to people, and a lot of the younger hunters are new hunters. And it's not, about the dollar signs on the pedigree or the grand champion titles and all. It's that dog doing what it was bred to do. And I kind of like the UKC when they came up with that slogan, dogs that do stuff, And that's what I've always loved about dogs. To watch them do the things that they can do, and give them the opportunity to do. That's the thing. Well, I'm excited about your future as a hunter too, because a lot of women are doing the night hunt successfully, and and you certainly have a network around you. With Bill and within your own family. Is Kevin supportive of your, let's put him on the spot here. Is he supportive of your Plott dog affliction, or would he rather you have a walker dog?
Honestly, I think he knows that these Plott dogs aren't going anywhere, and he just kind of adapted to it.
Yeah. Well, he's a smart man. Yeah. Bill, what about you? What's burning in your soul before we push this button and say goodnight?
It's late September here, and like I said, I'm a farmer. So for the next 60 days, my schedule is pretty jam packed with sitting in the combine seat and watching the grain come in.
Well, you get that done because it makes it a heck of a lot easier for an old man like me to go to the dogs than to have to walk across a 40-acre cornfield.
Yeah. Well, so that's, I really can't think about too much else until I get that behind me. Looking forward to the Grand American again. So that'll probably be the next big event that I get to. It's always good to reconnect with friends down there, of all breeds, but especially our Plott friends. And it's a reunion of sorts.
Yeah. Did you go to the Grand American yet, Hannah?
I have. I've been twice. I went last year, and then I went a couple years before that.
Okay. Well, I usually get stuck in the barn over there in the vendor barn. I don't get over to see the show much, so I didn't realize you were there, I guess.
Yeah. As long as weather holds up, I believe we plan on being there again this year.
Yeah. Well, that's great. That's great. That's one of the must-do things. Well, it's just been, for me, I lived in West Virginia, so it was about, I guess, 5-6 hour drive down to Orangeburg. So I went several times, and then over the years working with the registries, I was there for various reasons. But it's just, a year just doesn't get started off right for me without a trip to Orangeburg. That's just sets the tone for the year. And then, of course, Autumn Oaks at Labor Day. And I like the Winter Classic. Did you have a good time out there this year?
I did. My dad actually went with us this year. It was me, my mom, and my dad. And he definitely thinks that we're crazy trophy chasers. But whether he wants to admit it or not, he enjoyed himself.
He did. Well, that's great. That's great. Well, it's been...
So we'll probably monopolize some of Hannah's free time at the Grand American. She'll come over and be in the booth with me. So if anybody wants to come by and see Hannah's smiling face and visit with her and say hello, they'd be welcome to stop by. They don't only have to see the dogs. They can talk to Hannah too.
Yeah, no, I'll definitely be over there as much as I can.
You bet. Well, Hannah, I'd like for you to give a little parting shot here for the youth. I know you've done some mentoring and sharing what you've learned and your love for the dogs and the shows and all that. And I think it's awesome. And those kids are not going to listen to an old guy like me, but they're definitely going to listen to you because you're out there doing it and doing it very well. What word of encouragement or whatever would you have for kids that are maybe at that age like you, around 10 or 12 or whatever age group that are coming into the sport? What would you say to them?
Honestly, the biggest words of encouragement that I have is I know that things are hard, and I know that learning new things is definitely hard when you're first getting started, but if you have a question, ask questions. People are, younger kids are scared to ask questions. I know that I was when I was younger, and sometimes I still am, but if you ask questions, there's so many people who are willing to help you and willing to walk you through what's going on and how to help you fix things. And it's asking questions and watching is really the only way that you're going to learn how to do the sport and learn how to do it well.
And I might jump in here and admonish these older people or more experienced people, let's say, in these sports. When someone comes to you with a question, go out of your way, Yes,
I definitely agree with that.
Absolutely. Reach out to those that are trying to learn. A big ego is not going to do the job, but certainly taking the time to listen to the questions and never ever talk down to these young people, encourage them, build them up, I think I might misquote this, but I remember a quote that says, "A man never stands taller than when he stoops to help a child." And
Yeah.
yeah, great. What about you, Sage Bill
Well,
Scheninger?
I have to say that Hannah's has some great mentors. She's got great family support,
Right.
and her mother is they've spent some amazing time together. Her and her mother have, and one of the things I take away from that is, you ask about these young people, what can they do? Is if there is a lot that can be learned from the connection, the bond between a dog and a young person. And if you're passionate about that, if a young person's passionate about that, I think their parents will pick up on that and support them through that journey. And I mean, a good parent will for sure pick up on that and think that, this is a place where my child can grow and develop. And it's an exciting thing to happen.
Well, absolutely. And I don't know how many young people we have in the audience, but I would encourage the listeners, if there's a young person in your family or in your club or at your church or whatever that you can encourage to listen to this podcast this week, I hope that you will do that. And the whole effort is designed to encourage and to bring young people into the sport so that we can improve it, develop it, and pass it on to the future generations out there.
My family, my parents, my siblings, my nieces and nephews have all been very involved in 4-H program and canine obedience. And, obedience training the family dog is an outstanding opportunity to take that as a 4-H project. I mean, why spend the summer training a pig that's going to go to market when you could train that family dog that you're going to reap the benefits for the rest of its life?
Yes. Yeah. Well, and to that end, Bill, when you get to be my age, the love that these dogs give back is incredible. And when you find yourself with more time at home and more time to just relax and more time to do leisurely things, the companionship of a good dog is immeasurable. There is no way that I would want to live my life without dogs. I have actually gone to the dogs, and I'm proud of it, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And I don't believe that my life would be nearly as enriched or as full as it is without these dogs.
I right understand and appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, can we end on that note? And with a promise, I'm going to twist your arm that you'll both come back with me, and we'll talk some more, and Hannah can tell us about her accomplishments in the new year, and about her hunts this fall. I want to see some more pictures on, as I call it, the Book of Faces of those hunts with the JJ. And some video of him running those tracks. That's
most definitely.
Yeah, that's just before we started to record. My buddy Mark Miller there in North Carolina texted me and he said, "I'm getting ready to go." He'll say, "Get your boots on." I've got one of these Garmin LTE units, and we put it on fever, and I can sit in my easy chair here in Florida, 600 miles away, and watch him hunt. I can't, I don't get all the feedback that you get on your Garmin 200 or whatever, but I know where he's hunting and where he's going, and it's a lot of fun. It helps me to be involved,
Yeah, stay engaged, huh?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Good deal.
Yeah, technology's amazing. It sure is. Well, Bill Scheninger from, is it Delta, Ohio?
That's Ohio, correct.
Yes. And Hannah Cable from, help me, Hannah.
Cleves, Ohio.
Cleves. And that's spelled with an I, though, right?
No, it's Cleve.
Oh,
yes.
okay. I think there is maybe a Clives as well. I seems like over in around Holmesville or somewhere there might be one, but
Yeah.
Cleves, Ohio. You were you born in Indiana?
I was not. I was born and raised in Cleves.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, it's been a great time for me, a great visit. I'm sure my listeners will agree. I'll take a brief pause to thank the people at W Hunting Supply, Buddy Woodbury and Jason Doobie for all they do for our sport. If you need anything in the way of hunting gear, apparel, especially electronics, they have it. They're very supportive of all hunting with hounds and demonstrate that by their donations annually. So I want to give a shout out to them and the good folks at Alpha Dog Nutrition that are now sponsoring us as well. We want to thank them, and I always have to thank my big buddy Mark Zepp for his support through the weekly Wheel of Name spins that we do on Facebook. That's going to wrap it up for this episode, folks. I hope you have a great week. And if someone asks you, where's Bill and Hannah and Steve these days? Say they've gone to the dogs.
For sure, we've gone to the dogs.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're so very welcome. It's been a joy to have you. And let's do it again real soon, okay?
Okay.
You got it.